Joining us now on the line from Washington, D.C., Fadel Al-Ameen. He's a contributor to the Daily Beast and former consultant to the U.S. State Department on Libya. Fadel, it's good of you to join us. How are things in D.C. tonight?
They're okay. I mean, it's a little bit rainy, but it's okay.
Okay, let's talk about these. Our pleasure to have you. Let's talk about these Libyan rebels who we're hearing so much about, but I'm not sure anybody really knows who they are. So tell us, what do you know about the rebels?
I mean, I don't know if we should call them a rebel. It started as an uprising. I was just trying to understand how many, what kind of trends, who they are, who they belong to. Are there certain trends? I think they are just the Libyan people. They are nothing more or less. As some report I was just listening to in my way here, they were described as engineers, technicians, workers who decide to uprise against the Libyan regime, and they are trying to liberate the country.
I understand, but let's see if we can go a little deeper than that. Are there presumably some ex-Gaddafi military people in there, or some regime defectors, that kind of people?
Oh yeah, definitely. There are ex-political prisoners. They are ex-Gaddafi regime members. They are people who are younger, unemployed, professionals who've been trying to find jobs. The unemployment rate in Libya is around 35%. So it's a combination and composition of all these people come together, and they share one goal, and one goal only, is to get rid of Gaddafi and Gaddafi's regime, because 42 years of their lives they have said enough is enough. And I think sometimes people might think of them as militant, military. No, I think they are just the kind of people that they are looking for to be free. So many of them, they come, as I said, from different backgrounds. Some of them ex-military, some of them are politicians, some of them who were part of the regime at one time. The head of the military wing, for example, he was a member of the Revolutionary Council with Gaddafi. Then he opposed Gaddafi early on, and he was jailed for a number of years because of his opposition to Gaddafi. So you have it. It's all inclusive.
I mean, they sound like they come from many disparate parts of society, so I think it's a fair question to ask how united they are.
Well, I think they are united by one thing, is that they want to liberate the country. They want to gain the second, what I call the second independence of Libya. Libya got its independence in 1952, and in 1969 Gaddafi came to power through a coup, and he ruled for 42 years. Libya was under the Italian occupation for 30 some years, until it was liberated by the Allies from the Italians and the Axis. And now I think they feel that this is a second liberation for Libya, a second independence, and that's what they are, what unites them. Other than that, they have different points of view, different values, secularist, Islamist, liberals, leftist. I know personally some of them who are, yeah, they come from all these different backgrounds.
Does this movement have a leader?
Well, I mean, it's good. Libyan people are tired of one leader, so they came to some kind of a consensus. You remember it took quite some time from the time the uprising started, and we have to remember that the uprising started. They were demonstrating for reform. They didn't even ask for the regime to be replaced. They are asking Gaddafi to institute some reforms. But the way he responded and the mercenary that he used, I think that changed their attitude. Do they have a leader? They came to a consensus after a while. It took them a few weeks to come together and come up with a council that represents all these different trends and points of view. So there is no one leader, I think, and that's good for Libya, because Libya was under one leader for a long time, and they don't need another one.
Fadel, let me ask you about the significance of the tribes, because we've heard since the uprisings began that tribes are extremely important in the way Libya works. What role, if any, do the tribes have in all of this?
The tribes are not in Benghazi. The tribes are more to the east of Benghazi. I mean, Libya was early on, it used to be tribal before the, before even the independence, the first independence. And they were looking, but over a period of time, you have to remember, Libya, there was 5 cities along the coast of Libya that they have been there for thousands of years, from the Greeks, the Phoenicians, the Romans. So it has a history of urban societies residing. But the tribes mostly were revived by Gaddafi as a form of creating alliances within the society in order for him to keep himself in power. As far as right now, you have a number of tribes. The funny thing is, Al-Bayda, for example, one of the cities that where the violence started in the eastern part of Libya, that's one of the tribes where Gaddafi's wife from. He expected that alliance by marrying to that tribe, he would secure their allegiance. But what happened is when they saw the mercenaries, when they saw the killing, they rebelled even against him, and they disowned him as a tribe, as one of the major tribes there. So yeah, there is a tribal element, but it's within the component of the society itself. In cities like Tripoli, for example, you don't see tribes, and tribes don't play a role. But tribal, outside the main cities, yeah, there is a tribal element, and these tribes, most of them right now, they're united against Gaddafi, especially in the eastern part of the country. He's still relying on his own tribe, which is a small tribe compared to the other tribes, because I've heard the number of his tribe is around 1 million people. That's completely farther from the truth. He has a very small tribe, but he allied himself with other, larger tribes within the central part of Libya.
Okay, if you make comparisons with Egypt, we know that Egyptian protesters wanted more than just the removal of Hosni Mubarak. They also had a long list of constitutional and democratic demands as well. The opposition movement in Libya, do their demands go beyond, let's get rid of Colonel Gaddafi?
I think what we'll find out once this is all done, and I hope it will be soon, that this will be the true regime change, not just getting rid of a leader like Mubarak has to go or Ben Ali has to go, because right now you are uprooting a regime that lasted for 42 years. Though my feeling, the prospects of democracy and recreating rebirth for Libya is very good, because they are purging not just Gaddafi, but the system that he created, and that will give them a new opportunity to create a new environment that will be more conducive to democracy. And I think that they are looking for democracy. Libyan people are very moderate. You may see some pray and some say Allahu Akbar, but that's what happened with any society. I have to remember when Barack Obama, the president here, was referring to some conservatives within the United States. He said, when things get tough, people rely on their religion and guns. And I think Libyan people, they didn't have guns at that time, and until now, most of them, they don't. So they rely more on God and religion as a form of strength. It's not a form of extremism or organized religion or ideology, and that's very important for us to understand.
So when Colonel Gaddafi says things like, this opposition movement is made up of Islamists and Al-Qaeda, how much evidence is there behind that statement?
Well, the funny thing is I haven't seen any, he did not provide any evidence of that. First, he said that these guys are the young kids who are using hallucinogens, and they are drugged, and they were seduced to do things. They don't know anything, so that didn't work. He relied on the fear factor. It was like, okay, there will be Al-Qaeda in Libya, and this is the bogey that Islamists and terrorists, who the dictators use a lot to scare mostly the West, because nobody in Libya. So, the question is, if there were Al-Qaeda, what was he doing? Did he allow them to be there? Does he know anything about them? What happened to his security apparatus? Are they aware of these sleeping cells that he was talking about? sleeper cells, you know, that's all, I think, bogus. The fact is that there is, my fear is, to tell you the truth, that some of the remnant of Gaddafi's regime, even if he goes, may ally themselves with some terrorists in the future to commit terrorist activities or attacks against Libyans, even after he leaves. That's the real threat, because we know Gaddafi, I mean, we know his allies, they have allied themselves before with terrorist groups like the IRA, like others, and he committed terrorist activities. So I think that he's setting himself for that kind of thing, but we haven't seen any evidence. And even if it's this, there are remnants of Al-Qaeda or members here and there from Al-Qaeda that we catch from time to time in Western societies too. Do they represent that? Does that mean that these Western societies are ruled by Al-Qaeda or run by Al-Qaeda or controlled by Al-Qaeda? Of course not.
Understood.
I think this is just a bogey that he's using.
Okay, let's in our last few minutes here turn our attention to what the world can do right now. And to that end, I want to read you a short excerpt here from the opposition in Benghazi. They've created what they call an interim transitional national council. And here is an excerpt from their founding statement. We request from the international community to fulfill its obligations to protect the Libyan people from any further genocide and crimes against humanity without any direct military intervention on Libyan soil. So what action is the opposition asking the international community to undertake, if not direct military intervention on Libyan soil?
See, and I understand their dilemma. I mean, they are also have to appeal to the Libyan people, making sure. Yeah, in the back of their minds is what happened in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And I think in the back of President Obama's mind is the same thing. What happened in Afghanistan, what's happening in Iraq, and there is that kind of reluctance. They want help, but they are still have not formulated what kind of help and how this help can be provided. But as things go bad, and I just got a phone call from my brother less than 2 hours ago from Benghazi. He just asked me personally to mention the Zawiya, the city in the west of Tripoli. They've been without water, they've been without electricity, they've been completely without food for the last 4 days. And that can be a catastrophe. That's where I expect the humanitarian effort have to be directed. And I think what can be done by the West? I think a number of things. There is almost a consensus on the no-fly zone. Would it be enough by itself? I don't know. There will be a no-fly zone. People may even think about no-drive zone. They will not allow his mechanized brigades to move around and attack. But something has to be done, because lack of activities, I think, will lead to more problems and a bigger disaster, a humanitarian disaster, which is something I have no doubt that if the situation continue and he will start using more sophisticated weapons and more forms of artillery or planes, he will become more vicious as time goes by.
Understood. Fadel, it's good of you to join us on the line from D.C. tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you.